Hi there guys, and welcome to the latest episode of the Cryptoverse, your regular dose of news and commentary on Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies and blockchains. I'm your host, Chris Coney. Welcome to today's live stream. Today I have a couple of things to say about the markets, and I'll highlight what I believe to be the key details to focus on for the week ahead. So a quick summary of what those details are. Number one, major resistance levels being met across the board in the crypto markets. Breaking these levels should lead to strong upward price movements, so let's keep an eye on those. Number two, Consensus 2018 starts a week tomorrow on the 14th of May. So this is something we've been waiting for as potentially a start of the new bull run. We'll talk about that a little bit. Number three, tomorrow the 7th of May, the United States Securities Exchange Commission is set to decide whether Ethereum is a security and whether it falls under their jurisdiction. So those are the three topics. If you're not interested in those, you can bail. If you are interested in, let's get into them. Number one, the market hitting major resistance price levels. So the total market cap from yesterday to today has dropped about 7 billion. The total market cap for the whole space here, it's pulled back a bit. Yesterday's video, it was about 457 billion. Today it's 450. Now I know that might be stating the obvious, but it occurred to me that when the highest cap coins move a few percentage points, well, that has a disproportionately large impact on the overall market cap, right? So say when we have a big price swing in Bitcoin or Ethereum, they only have to move by 5% to have a disproportionately large impact on the overall market cap because of their market caps, okay? So it takes a lot of altcoin movement to equal like a 5% move in the Bitcoin market cap. That's basically what I'm saying. So I mentioned that because I often look at that number at the top of CoinMarketCap to say what's the total market cap of the whole cryptoverse. And if it swings 7 billion or swings 10 billion, I go, oh no, that's a huge move. But it may just be because Bitcoin moved down 5% and that had a disproportionate sway on it. So never take a piece of data in isolation, right? Take it as a data point in conjunction with everything else. Now, I'm not surprised that this pullback happened because if we flip over to the charts, here's my Coinigy chart. Let me pop it up. Here it is. So here's my Coinigy chart. This is the 4-hour chart on Bitcoin against the US dollar, which I also looked at yesterday. Now we can see what I was referring to in terms of these resistance levels across the board. Pay attention to the right-hand side of the chart. I've split out my volume today just so it doesn't get in the way. Let's get the volume a bit bigger because the volume, you could look at the blue line here. This is average volume over 20 days. It's been dipping a little bit and it's sort of flattened out. So look what happened to Bitcoin when it hit 10,000. I mean, a hard bounce off 10,000 here. And then heading back to previous support at 94.66, which if you can see this on the chart, if you're watching this, it coincides nicely with the 50 exponential moving average. So I've got this horizontal it's sort of a yellow on my screen. It may not show up on the recording, but it's a dotted yellow support line at 94.66, and it's meeting right with the 50 EMA here. If I zoom right in, you might be able to see it better. So this is today's little, looks like a Marabuzo candle right now, no head or wick on it. Still quite a long way to go for the day. Very little volume so far today compared to yesterday and the day before. It is a weekend day, and in the UK actually tomorrow it's a bank holiday. Not that it really matters, just making the observation, right? Now, if you want a quick reference guide to these major price levels, I did tweet this out earlier on today, so you can check that tweet out. I'll put it in the show notes for today. I personally would recommend you plotting these prices on your charts as horizontal lines so you can see for yourself how the price interacts with each of them. I'll just show one more chart because Dash to me is probably the most stark example of this, of how these interactions work. So let me pop over to the Dash chart here. Let me put this back on the screen. Let's zoom out a little bit here. So I've plotted $505 here as another horizontal yellow dotted resistance line. Now what's interesting about Dash in particular is, I mean, what do you see here? We see two clear false breakouts for starters. So where are we at here? This is the first false breakout of 505, and then here, literally within the last couple of days, the second false breakout. So that's that. But we also had three, like 1, 2, 3 hard tests of that price of 505, which failed. So this is a really significant level for Dash. 3 tests, 2 failed breakouts. That's 5 significant pieces of evidence for me that this is a key level for Dash. Ethereum also had a bit of a false breakout. Where's Ethereum here against the US dollar? Ethereum false breakout at that level of 818. Look at that. That's almost like what Bitcoin did at 10,000. Hard, this is actually a false breakout. It's not a hard bounce, but serious sell-off after that 818 level that I mentioned in yesterday's video. Now, I'm not going to belabor this point, right? Because most altcoin charts look roughly the same shape, right? They're all hitting these key levels of resistance. So check out that tweet I posted with specific prices of major coins for you to keep an eye on. Story number 2. So Consensus 2018 is starting in a week's time. So Consensus is an event put on by CoinDesk. Every year it's become like the most major event of the year. And they're pretty good at sort of selling themselves. If you look here, they've got a lot of stats about, they're convincing you why you should go, right? It does your audience match the audience of CoinDesk? 70% from North America. And look at the growth every year. 400 people back in 2015. This year expected 4,000 plus, 10 times what there was from just 3 years ago. And then there's the recordings and so on and so forth, right? Pretty sweet. Now, it's not a cheap event, right? The tickets are $1,000, I think, something like that, a couple of $1,000. So biggest crypto show of the year, almost arrived, just 1 week away on the 14th of May. Pardon the pun on this one, but the general consensus in the crypto community is that this event in particular is the one where major crypto projects will hold off their announcements for. This makes perfect sense to me because so much attention is focused on consensus. It would make sense to put out your major announcement when all the eyeballs are pointing in that direction, right? I also remember when we were hitting the bottom of the crypto market prices, there was a lot of attention focused on consensus being like the likely turning point for the market based on what happened in previous years, right? Hopefully this will be like history repeating itself, right? Remember, the only thing markets really need to move upwards is confidence, right? It's not necessarily attached to the fundamentals. It's just confidence, right? Because we're speculating largely, it's a confidence in future. It's the faith that the fundamentals will be there in the future, right? And that's what we are speculating on, right? So that sell-off at $10,000 Bitcoin, no surprise to me. It proves that investors that are just a bit jumpy, right? Still a bit raw from the major sell-off that we had in the bear market at the beginning of this year. So, they're a bit nervous about the prices potentially crashing again. So many people looking at the key level of 10,000 and taking some profits out. Lack of confidence is going to break. Poor volume today. Same will happen again at 20,000, right? Because that really was the point where we hit it and then had a hard sell-off. So I would expect, quite a significant pullback from 20,000 before we can break through it. So the only third thing I wanted to talk about today was big day for Ethereum tomorrow. Let's pop over to an article that I picked out. There's lots of articles talking about this. This one was just one I happened to pick out from my news feed. The SEC to make decision on Ethereum tomorrow, which is the 7th of May. So tomorrow the SEC and the CFTC are set to decide whether or not Ethereum is a security, legally speaking. So since Ethereum launched as an ICO at something like 70 cents, would you believe that? And I remember reading the Ethereum website before it launched, right? And I'd only just got my head around Bitcoin, right? And I was like, what the hell's this thing Ethereum, right? It just sounds way too out there. Smart contracts and so on. It was new territory, so I couldn't wrap my head around it. I did not invest in the Ethereum ICO at 70 cents, but I remember reading the website before the ICO and just a lack of vision on my part, right? Had I had the vision to see it, I would have participated in the ICO, and now we would be at $800 Ethereum, right? That's a huge return. Anyway, since Ethereum was an ICO, it can be argued from the regulator's point of view that people invested in the coin with the intention of making a profit off someone else's work. That's kind of the basics of how you deem something a security or not. If it is deemed a security, then it'll have to be regulated as one, or at least the companies that are handling Ethereum will have to be regulated. Maybe they won't want to do that. So that could result in Ethereum being dropped by exchanges, for example, or any company that doesn't want to go through the regulatory headaches, they could potentially delist Ethereum. So this is worst case scenario. As of today in the United States, cryptocurrencies are deemed to be commodities, and that's a different type of asset class to securities, and therefore have a different set of tax laws and regulatory laws that govern them. This is the thing about cryptocurrencies, right? The US can't even seem to decide which regulatory body is responsible for governing cryptos. So the Securities and Exchange Commission say, oh, we're responsible. It's within our jurisdiction. We have power to regulate it. And then the CFTC, they're like, no. It's a commodity and we are the ones that should be regulating it and so on. Of course, each of these organizations wants the power because this is a significant technological revolution and they would like to exert their will upon it. I understand it. I get it. Power is seductive in that way. It could also be argued, though, and this would be my argument, Ethereum, its intended purpose is to be gas for the Ethereum virtual machine, right? And I would argue that that was the reason why people bought it in the ICO. So that makes it a utility token and not a security, right? But that's what Ethereum is for, right? It's to pay for the usage of the Ethereum virtual machine. That's what it's for. That's what it's actually for, right? Just whether the regulators see it that way or not. Now, interestingly, Bitcoin doesn't have this problem, right? Because there was no ICO with Bitcoin. Bitcoin came into existence when it was mined through the mining process, which means the miners worked for the Bitcoin rather than buying it. So I can't see any way you could wangle Bitcoin as a security, right? I'd say that's a big plus for Bitcoin, actually. It sidesteps a lot of these problems, right? So in terms of how this particular news will affect prices, I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that the outcome of this decision, the markets will react strongly either way. That's what I honestly think will happen. So I would say watch out for some increased volatility coming tomorrow, whichever way this decision goes, right? It's a big decision for Ethereum, but it also has a huge ripple effect, excuse me for the pun again, on the whole space, right? Because Ethereum is, second biggest crypto by market cap, and also so many projects rely on Ethereum's infrastructure for their ERC20 tokens or whatever, right? So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Ethereum really does need to succeed for the space to succeed. So I'm rooting for Ethereum right now, right? I personally am quite optimistic that we'll get the result we want, which is Ethereum not qualifying as a security. But let me know what you think will happen in the comments below. Alrighty then, guys, that is all I wanted to talk about today. Thanks very much for joining me. If you liked this episode, go ahead, hit the like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. Please leave me a comment below with some feedback and get subscribed. And if you would like to take my new course called The Master Crypto Trader, which you can imagine what that's about, it's about cryptocurrency trading, how to do technical analysis, and actually not just technical analysis, that's just one module. It's actually a complete trading system. Check that out. There's a launch offer for the first 50 people. Check it out on the website, cryptoverse.com, or click the link in the video description below. Alrighty then, guys, that is all for today. I'll be back with the next episode of the Cryptoverse. So until then, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.